Hey guys, it's Eddie and today I am back with another movie review for you all. Now today's movie that I will be reviewing is something that I watched in the cinema very recently. I was so excited and thrilled to be watching it, and it is of course Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Now this is the latest Star Wars movie to be released. It is a prequel to episode 4, A New Hope, and it stars Felicity Jones, Mads Mikkelsen, it stars Diego Luna, Forrest Whitaker and Donnie Yen, just to name a few. But it is also directed by Gareth Edwards, and those are just the minor details. So without further ado, we'll get straight to reviewing because I am just so thrilled to be talking to you guys about this movie today and I don't want to wait any longer. So let's jump into it. Now, this story, as I said, leads right up to episode 4. It leads right up to the point where we meet Leia, and it's, I think, requires some knowledge of the Star Wars series, particularly episodes 4, 5 and 6, to watch it. Even though the story you can sort of grasp on its own, it does help to have that sort of basic Star Wars knowledge before you watch it. I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan ever of all time. I'm not as much of a fan as, others, but I would still classify myself as a fan. So I think it does help to just have that preliminary knowledge about the Star Wars franchise before you go and see it. And I think this film definitely is one for the fans. A lot of people called out of The Force Awakens for being very, very much like episode 4, and they were like, okay, it's nostalgic and we appreciate that, but it's a little bit too similar, a little bit too unoriginal. But I don't think you can keep that same argument with Rogue One, because I think the characters are just so authentic and exciting and original. I think the story, whilst it leads up to the old favourite episode 4, it still retains its own originality, and I think it's really great. It's really different despite being still part of the Star Wars story. And each character, what I love about this film actually is the characters. I think the characters really made this movie. So I think Jyn, played by Felicity Jones, is an incredible leading female role. She's fantastic. I would say that she surpasses Rey from The Force Awakens. I'm not exactly sure why, but I think she's just so determined and she's such a strong character. I was immediately taken with her, and I think her surrounding fellow rebels, such as Baze and Chirrut, am I pronouncing that correctly? I hope I am, played by Donnie Yen. And then we've also got K2SO, the reprogrammed Empire droid. He's fantastic. I think this mishmash of characters just comes together so perfectly, and they're all so different, but they make a fantastic team within the movie. And Mads Mikkelsen also as Galen Erso is a fantastic character as well. I think they're just all so wonderfully written, and they're so different and individual. I love them. I thought they were all brilliant. And what I also loved about this movie was Gareth Edwards' directing. I thought this sort of camera movements, the way that it panned upwards from the stars at the beginning to the planet on which the beginning of the story would take place, all of that kind of space setting direction was extremely reminiscent of what we've seen in the previous films. I think it still had that nostalgic touch for Star Wars fans, but I think his direction was just so perfectly executed. Not only the direction, of course, but the cinematography. I thought that the actual scenery and the settings of the different planets, because this movie took us again to new worlds, new Star Wars worlds, it was just stunning. Such a treat for the eyes. This film was incredibly, incredibly beautiful, and you really couldn't afford to take your eyes off it because each new scene or shot was just so stunningly beautiful to watch, and I thought that was a great element to this movie. I thought it brought back original Star Wars nostalgia whilst being totally itself, its own movie, and I thought that was wonderful, and probably something that a lot of the people that weren't totally pleased with The Force Awakens would really appreciate. I thought it was also highly emotional. I think this movie is one of the most emotional Star Wars movies there is, because of its theme of hope and the fact that it's this team of characters that we all love striving to defeat the Empire. And for all those who know the rest of the story, they know the odds of that happening or not, and it's incredibly heartbreaking to see these characters go through this, especially Jin's story. Her backstory is incredibly sad as well. It's just a really sort of heartbreaking story in which you grow attachment to these characters. And also, I think I always get incredibly emotional with Star Wars anyway. I don't know what it is about Star Wars, but whenever I watch the films, my emotions just seem to be totally heightened by these films, and this film was no different. In fact, it was completely on another level, because I was crying in the cinema at, you know, numerous moments. So it really got to you, this film. But nevertheless, it was beautiful, and it also had comedy lended to it from characters such as K2SO. Such a wonderful droid. I loved his character so much. He brought such a light element to the film. So it was a perfect balance of everything: action, emotion, comedy. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it had quite a slow, sort of patchy mismatch of a beginning, but I later found out that that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. For example, it sort of cut to different chronological times and places when it was building up the story of Jin. And at first you weren't entirely sure what was going on. And I was a little bit like, well, wait, hold on, you need to slow down here. But I think it totally worked in the end. And I think it really lended itself to the sort of the building of the crescendo of this film. It was a sort of uneven start, but it really sort of melded together as we reached the sort of middle to the end of the film. And I thought that that sort of uneven start was actually necessary, and it made sense in the end. So that was just something that I picked up on, but it's not necessarily a bad point. It's more just of a style thing. And there was an inclusion, of course, for anyone who doesn't know, of certain CGI characters in this movie. CGI characters of people who were in the original series but are unfortunately not with us. Now, I thought that some of the CGI characters were done well, but there is a particular scene, I won't spoil anything, but involving the reconstruction of Princess Leia, young Princess Leia, through CGI. Now, I didn't entirely think that that was necessary. By the way, I'm sorry if you guys thought that that was, you know, it's a little bit of a spoiler. I really apologise for that, but it is something that I picked up on, because it showed Leia sort of from the back, and we all know from the way that Leia dresses and her style, we all know that that is categorically Leia. It's, you know, it's not like she's unrecognisable from the back. So I thought that because the CGI of her facial reconstruction looked kind of weird and freaked me out a little bit, it just set me off. I just sort of had to be like, whoa, okay, that's not great, but there we are. I thought you kind of could have just shown Leia from the back and alluded to it being Leia without, you know, reconstructing her through CGI. I thought it was a little bit unnecessary, but I don't think it ruined the film or anything. I just thought it was a little bit excessive in a way. But that was all I really had to say on that. I'm sure a lot of people didn't mind that. That was just something that I felt was a little bit amiss. But I will say, and we all know from the trailers, that Darth Vader makes an appearance in this film. And I will say, my ticket, the money I paid to go and see this movie, it was worth it just for the Vader scene alone. Just for the times when Darth Vader appeared. They were so brilliantly done, and such an ode to the character, and such a little extra something for the fans, that I think they were just so thrilling that I literally would have paid just to see those scenes. I thought they were absolutely fantastic. Darth Vader is such a humongous, sort of legendary character, and I thought that the scenes that he was in were just so fantastically badass and well done. I thought they were just incredible. So yeah, I think they were possibly the best part of this film, but that's just me. And I cannot knock the fantastic acting from Felicity Jones in the lead role. She was amazing, as were her fellow supporting actors. As I said, they really brought these characters to life. They really made them individual, and they really lended a sort of fantastic originality to this film. Now, I think it's really unfair to knock The Force Awakens. I really enjoyed it when I watched it for the first time. I've continued to watch it. I have it on DVD. It's a great, fantastic film. Do I think Rogue One was better? At this point, yes. But I've only just watched it, so maybe when I rewatch it and rewatch The Force Awakens, my mind might be different. But I was totally so shocked and thrilled and blown away by Rogue One that it did kind of edge upwards further than The Force Awakens in my mind and in my estimation. So I don't know, at this point I am saying that I might just prefer Rogue One to Force Awakens at this point, but you might think completely different. I just thought it was such a wonderfully executed story, a wonderful tribute to the original films that was done in its own individual way, and I thought it was fantastic. I really could barely find any fault in this movie. I'm sure a lot of more die-hard Star Wars fans might be able to, but I'm going on it based from a cinematic point of view, and I thought that character-wise, plot-wise, direction-wise, it was all fantastic, stunning, thrilling. So I really would advise you guys to go and see this film if you're a die-hard Star Wars fan, or if you're just a regular fan of the films like me. You should definitely go and see it. I think it's the perfect ode to the original films while standing on its own 2 feet. It's a great, great film, and yeah, I loved it. I really, really loved it. If I had to give it a rating, I'd probably give it 5 out of 5 stars, because I was honestly buzzing when I got out of the cinema. I was just thrilled to have seen it, because it gave you such a high afterwards. Because it really sort of brought me back to the old films, whilst making me really appreciate and become a fan of these new characters that were played so brilliantly by the actors in their roles. So I really appreciate what Gareth Edwards has done with this film. I thought the story was brilliant, and yeah, definitely give it a try if you're a fan of Star Wars. Now, that was my take on Rogue One. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Remember, you can always suggest a movie for me to review by commenting below or sending me a message on my Tumblr. I will leave a link in the description. But for now, that is it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.